additions or changes? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have no information items this evening. On the consent agenda, we have item 5.1, which is approval of the January 14 board minutes, approval of the check register, general checking account, surety account, and 325 Blake Road account, and three resolutions. 16-004, authorization to enter into a 3-year contract with TDS for district phone services. Resolution 16-005, authorization to enter into a contract with Imagine IT as the district's information technology managed service provider. And Resolution 16-006, authorization to purchase Kister's Whiskey Water Resource Data Management System. That's a mouthful. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. As President's report, I'll talk about the Wayzata Lake Effects Signature Project Steering Committee, which met earlier this week, and will have its final meeting in February. They're continuing to refine the designs. Changes we saw this time were that the ponds at the Gleason Creek outlet they are seeing as being wetlands with hydrologic connection to the lake, which would require annual dredging. They have been reconfiguring the marina to allow for more boat space. They would treat storm water on site for both parking lots, and there would therefore be no stormwater pond associated with one. And they're looking at a better way of supporting the boardwalk so that they would not need bubblers to be in place. The designs continue to be not terrifically detailed, and so it's there's nothing really hard to grab onto. The Technical Advisory Committee, of course, continues to meet with Ms. Clark, and they have a representative from the DNR there as well. And so they have been weighing in on some of the specific items concerning water uses. The final design is supposed to come back on the 23rd of February. I shouldn't say supposed to, but scheduled to. They're looking right now just a napkin calculation cost of $3.4 million. They're revising that. They look for approximately 1/3 public contribution, 1/3 earned income, and 1/3 combination of value capture and contributed income. The public contribution they're talking about so far would be property taxes, a park improvement district perhaps, hospitality and food tax, and charging market rate for their slip rentals, and adding some extra slips in the lake outside the marina that we, for larger boats, would therefore have a larger fee attached. So that will be further developed as well. There is a meeting schedule. There are a couple of meeting schedule changes to announce. Our schedule had a 5th Thursday, March 31st, as a possible retreat date. We will not hold that date, but we will meet instead on April 7th in retreat. And the Operations Committee would be rescheduled if needed to April 21 to coincide with the Planning Policy Committee meeting to be at the same time. And then, the two agenda items noted for that retreat are budget ideas the board would have, and we will begin to use the strategic framework to talk about those before work plans are developed, and governance policies. Then also another retreat in May on a Saturday to do a tour of 6 Mile. And we're looking at the dates of May 14 or May 21, and full disclosure, the 14th is fishing opening. But do either of those dates work for all of us, the 14th or the 21st of May? No one has a conflict for either? Okay, we'll get that information out then. And then I'll mention at this point that I've consulted with staff and Manager Olson, and the February 4th Operations and Program Committee will be canceled, and the session to talk about Laserfish and work on the Laserfish will be pushed forward to a further date, a later date. And then Manager Calkins, Planning and Policy Committee.
The Planning and Policy Committee met last Thursday, the 21st, and discussed a number of items. One was the 6 Mile Subwatershed Investment Framework, and staff presented some information on that, including opportunities for county bonding and grants may come from places like Three Rivers, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Section 206 funding, Lassard Sams, and the DNR. We also talked about the value-added permitting program, and we had some discussion about that, and staff together with legal counsel is taking a look at how that might work to protect the district. There was also a discussion about the mission, vision, goals, and guiding principles, and also a discussion about the strategic framework diagrams, which staff has changed. It's changed a little bit from our last discussion. And then lastly, there was discussion about the Wayzata Lake effect and also the Norwood Mall area and stormwater management opportunities there.
Thank you. Metro Mod met last week. Manager Olson, you were there, Manager Shackleton, Manager Bliss? Were you at Metro Mod? Okay, so Manager Olson and Shackleton, what can you tell us?
I'll take it here.
Sure.
The Governor's Water Summit is full as of this date, and the DNR will be presenting aquifer decline data that they've been doing research on. To that end, the legislature did request that the DNR put a report together on groundwater and the use of groundwater, and that was submitted in the middle of December. A full report will be given to the Metro Mod in March, mid-March. They have kind of come up with a description of Minnesota's water condition as being in the urgency room, not the emergency room. So we're not there yet, but we're headed that way because we have a growth of about 2 billion gallons per year consistently. And anytime there's dry weather or warm weather, we pump more. And right now we don't have a limit as long as you have a permit. So they're looking at that, and they're trying to come up with some sort of a definition for sustainability. The last item here too was Bowser's Phase 3 money for disaster relief has been announced, and it's about $2.4 million, and that would close out any monies that would be used for the recovery from last year. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Are there other meetings or events that managers have attended that you'd like to report on? We'll move on then to 8.2. The upcoming meeting and event schedule is listed here. Note again the cancellation of the February 4th meeting. We have no public hearings this evening. We do have a permit. Mr. Dietrich and Ms. Schaufler, permit 16-022.
Thank you, President White. President White, managers, before the board this evening for approval is permit number 16022, the MCWD project for the Painter Creek culvert replacement located at 4680 and 4650 Creekwood Trail in the city of Orono. This permit is appearing before the board this evening because it is a district project. So this evening I will be covering the project location in the background with the assistance of Ms. Schaufler, the project details, the rules triggered, and finally following up with the staff recommendation. So just to orient you in the watershed, we are on the northern portion of the watershed just southwest of Lake Katrina. And just some features of note, we've got Katrina Marsh immediately east of the project location that's highlighted in blue here, Lake Katrina to the northeast, and Wayzata Boulevard here. There is County Road 6 to the southwest, and then these two wetlands labeled PC11 and PC12, these are both receiving water bodies for Painter Creek. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Schaufler for a background on the project.
So in June of 2014, the district received some phone calls from folks that live on Hunt Farm Road, which is this road outlined in red. It indicated that their road was flooding and they had some concerns over high water. At that same time, folks that lived on Starkey Road, which is the other road highlighted in red, also indicated that they were having problems. And the Starkey Road flooding actually did result in about $20,000 in damage that the city had to do to repave the road. What we did from here was, after the waters receded in the fall of 2014, the district went in and indeed investigated the culverts that were identified as potentially causing the problem. Through that investigation, the district did determine that the culverts were an obstruction, looking through the ditch authority lens, and had two options to go. One was take the ditch authority approach and require the landowners replace the culverts with what we identified to be 36-inch culverts needing, or we could look at a partnership approach and design the 36-inch culverts ourselves and negotiate land rights around South Katrina Marsh, as that is a focal and priority area for the district for a potential partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers. So we went with the latter approach, partnering with the folks around there. We did move forward with the design of the 36-inch culverts, and just want to make a note that they will increase the downstream high water 100-year flood elevation about 3.5 inches, but that still is within the banks of the ditch and within the district's drainage authority easement. So with that, Tom will discuss how the district rules impact the rest of the project.
So the current existing conditions, apologize that the creek is such a faint blue line here, but the creek runs down here, so this would be south, and then there are two private drives here, and underlying each of the private drives is an 18-inch culvert. Under the proposed plan, which doesn't look terribly different from the existing conditions, 36-inch culverts will be installed underneath the driveways, and then there will be some in-channel slope repair as well. So this project will trigger the district rules of erosion control, floodplain alteration, and water body crossings and structures, and I'll just briefly cover how the proposed project meets each of these rules. So for erosion control, this rule is triggered when there's 5,000 square feet of disturbance or 50 cubic yards of excavation. And in this case, both of those thresholds are exceeded, so the rule is triggered. And accordingly, the applicant has provided all the necessary information. They've got two construction entrances, which will be the private drives here. There'll be some tree protection on the outskirts of the channel. And finally, a floating sill curtain that'll be on the downstream side of the culvert replacement. There's no inlets on the cul-de-sac, so those were not required, but in this way, the applicant has met all criteria of the erosion control rule. The district's floodplain alteration rule is triggered for any project proposing disturbance below the 100-year flood elevation of a water body. And since Painter Creek is moving through the landscape linearly, we've got multiple floodplain elevations. So we start off at 962.45. And then on the downstream side, we have 960.35. In the middle here, we've got three different areas of disturbance, and these are slope stabilizations. And basically, this will be repairing the in-channel slopes to a 3-to-1 to pre-flood conditions. So in this way, the applicant has met all the criteria of the floodplain alteration rule. There is no net fill, so they have met the rule. The water body crossings and structures rule is triggered for any project proposing a culvert or utility line or road in contact with the bed or bank of a water course. Because there is a culvert replacement, the rule is triggered. So as I referenced earlier, there are two 18-inch culverts underlying these private drives currently. And as Tiffany indicated, they're undersized and they're acting as a flow constraint for Painter Creek. So under the proposed conditions, 36-inch culverts are proposed to be in place underneath the private driveways. And just to give you a preview of how we analyze this under the district's rules, under Section 4 of the water body crossing rule, the board has the authority to determine if a water body is considered altered or degraded from its natural state. And if there is a proposed project that will improve the ecological integrity of the area, then you are able to waive the criteria of the rule. And the reason that we've done this, or analyzed it this way, is if you were to replace the culverts in strict conformance with the criteria of the district's rule, you'd have to replace the 18-inch culverts with 18-inch culverts, leaving you with still the problem of inundation and then the erosion associated with that. And just to give you an idea of the flooding that was, just didn't show up. There we go. Just to give you an idea of the extent of the flooding in Katrina Marsh, this is a typical water level picture, and then under high water conditions, like we had in 2014, the area is extensively flooded and there's a lot of property damage. So in quantifying the downstream effects, essentially by removing the 18-inch culverts and installing the 36-inch culverts, the area between the project location and County Road 6 is the only one that's experiencing a 3-inch rise in the high water line. However, that's going to be contained within the confines of the ditch. And then as we move downstream to the receiving water bodies, PC11 and PC12, there's no measurable increase in water level. So in this way, the applicant has met all of the rules.
Can you go back to that
Sure.
previous slide? Are either one of those under our control, PC 11 or 12?
Managers, Manager Miller, PC 11, the district holds an easement, a conservation easement over, and then PC 12, we own outright.
Okay. Thank you.
So in this way, the applicant has met all applicable district rules, and staff is recommending approval of the project with the conditions that are listed in the permit report. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Manager Olson?
Okay, when we go from an 18-inch to a 36-inch, we're doubling the diameter, and what we're going to do is raise the driveway? Or are we lowering the pipe? How do you accomplish the bigger installation? Because if the driveways are at the same height, we're going to have to go down, and I'm assuming that's below the bottom of the creek level, so how does that help us?
Manager Olson, managers, I think I'll defer to Chris on this, on the installation of culverts.
Mr. Meehan?
Manager Olson, managers. What we'll do is the grades will stay the same on the culverts. There's still enough separation between the driveways and where the 36-inch pipe. So the driveways will stay at the same elevation. Pipe inverts will stay at the same elevation. We're just putting 36-inch pipes in the same, I guess, profile as the 18-inch pipes.
Okay,
So there's less dirt between the pipe and the top of the driveway?
Yep, that's correct.
interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Manager Shackleton?
So we're doubling the diameter of the pipes, which will provide greater ability for water to flow downstream. Nobody will be flooded by doing this?
Manager Shackleton, managers, by increasing the culvert size from 18 inches to 36 inches, the downstream flood effects for the areas between the project location and County Road 6 will experience a rise of 3 inches, but it'll be confined within the ditch. So basically, it will rise, but it'll be rising within the ditch and not affecting any private property outside the ditch.
Okay. Thank you.
Manager Calkins?
And the rise you're talking about is only during a 100-year event, or what size event?
Manager Calkins, managers, the rise we're talking about is the Atlas 14 100-year event.
Okay, and so during normal flow conditions, is the level of the upstream wetland changed?
Manager Calkins, managers, I believe that the ultimate flow control on this, on Katrina Marsh is a weir, correct me if I'm wrong, Tiffany, and it's just upstream of these culverts. So the 18-inch culverts are acting as a flow constraint, and under high water conditions, the weir is several feet underwater, as in 2014, but under current conditions, the weir will act as the ultimate flood control.
So under normal conditions, the
Normal conditions,
levels of the
correct.
water will stay as they are today.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Question.
Other questions?
The motion to approve the permits?
Second.
Discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then the related item, 11.2.
I just want to comment that the presentation normally would be pretty complicated with all the 3 different rules, and well, I really did a nice job of clarity, and I think last year, so it was very easy to make the decision.
Thank you, Manager Miller.
Resolution 16-008, Ms. Schauffer.
Managers, tonight, before you, we are going to continue on from Tom's permit report to talk more in depth about the project and how it came about, and what the partnership opportunities that we'd like to move forward with tonight. So a background on the presentation, I'm going to just briefly cover the 2014 flooding, talk a little bit more about the culvert investigation that we did, then discuss the partnership and easements that are before you tonight for action, talk about the culvert reconstruction of the contract that's before you for action. Then we're going to step into closed session to discuss the valuation of the cost of the culvert versus the land that the district's set to potentially acquire, and then come out of closed session and then take action if the board finds that amendable. So as Tom pointed out, this is a typical water level on the top for South Katrina Marsh, and then the bottom was taken in 2014. Staff did provide the board an update on this flooding during the June 26th board update of the flooding that was occurring around the whole district. So as I noted earlier, there was two major infrastructure impacts during this flooding. Since Painter Creek starts at Lake Katrina, the area that drains into Lake Katrina was affected also because it couldn't push through under Highway 12. So parts of Baker Park and this trail were flooded, and Starkey Road was probably the most severely impacted. It was under about 16 inches of water for about 4 to 6 weeks. And like I said, that did result in some damage that caused the road needed to be resurfaced, and also caused some safety concerns, as there was 2 elderly women that lived down there, and in order to get through 16 inches of water, you needed a pickup truck, which they did not have. So that's another interest of us to get involved. At the same time, the folks on Hunt Farm Road, which is the left red line, specifically it requested that the district investigate what was causing the flooding, and their thoughts were that it was these 2 driveway culverts. So here are the driveway culverts. They're under 2 private driveways. They're 18 inches in size, and when Painter Woods developed, which is the subdivision for these culverts, that went in the late 80s, early 90s. And through my search of district records, City of Orono records, DNR records, there was no records that showed that these culverts had ever been approved by any of those agencies. So our assumption moving forward was, it is what it is. We're going to investigate them as seeing if they are an obstruction, and then go from there. So after we did our investigation, we did determine that the culverts were undersized. They needed to be at least double the size that they were. So we moved ahead and with the 36-inch diameter design. And since Painter Creek is considered County Ditch 10, like I said during Tom's presentation, we had a right that we could initiate the statutory requirement of having these private driveway owners replace the culverts at their own cost. Recognizing that that probably won't be a favorable approach to them, and also recognizing that the district has an interest in the whole South Katrina Marsh as a potential partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers, staff approached the landowners and inquired about the partnership to leverage the district paying for the culvert replacement in exchange for the district receiving land rights over South Katrina Marsh. So to date, what we did was we provided the Policy and Planning Committee 3 updates on this. We did that in March, September, and October. At our last update in October, we discussed with the committee that we had received 9 letters of intent to date, indicating people in support of moving forward with giving the district easements if we did indeed replace the culverts. Where we're positioned today is the land that you see in blue is land over South Katrina Marsh, and then also potential easements over Painter Creek itself, which equals to be about 97 acres. Staff did meet with the Land Conservation Technical Advisory Committee on January 19th and discussed this approach with them, and they supported the partnership and the district's easement acquisition as well. I do want to note that this isn't all the land that will be required for a potential Army Corps of Engineer project. It's the current people that are supportive at the time and are willing to move forward with easements. I also want to note that staff has been in contact with City of Orono staff, and they are very supportive of the project. They are glad, they had received a lot of phone calls as well about the culvert situation, so glad to see that it's being taken care of. I will be presenting to them at their February 8th meeting to seek approval on subordinating some of their city easements to these potential district easements, and then also to seek a resolution of support for the culvert replacement project and a potential Army Corps of Engineers project. So we moved forward with the design of the culverts. So the construction drawings, as Tom talked about, show replacing 18-inch culverts with 36-inch culverts. The district sought 5 quotes, and we received 5 quotes back. Minnesota Dirt Works currently submitted the low quote of $43,437. If you note in your packet, that is almost $20,000 less than the next low quote. So we have confirmed that the quote is conforming and responsible, and learned that the quote is a great value actually for the district because Minnesota Dirt Works has a large sister company which enables them to save on material costs. So that's why they're able to submit such a low cost. So with that, I'd like to enter into closed session to discuss the potential acreage that we are looking to acquire for the potential cost of the construction culverts. And I can...
And the property addresses are?
Madam President, so we'd request a board motion to authorize us go into closed session for the purposes of developing an offer to acquire real estate interests concerning the following properties. An unassigned address for PID number 30118234400006, and another associated section for the roadway with PID numbers 30118234400007 and 30118234300005, along with 4490 Watertown Road, 4720 Watertown Road, 4675 Creekwood Trail, 4650 Creekwood Trail, 4680 Creekwood Trail, 4700 Creekwood Trail, 1100 Town Line Road, and 4575 Spruce Way.
Thank you. Would someone make a motion to go into closed session for those properties?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I know, but 2 of those.